which is a project of the Texas Criminal Justice Court. And we are all system impacted individuals who advocate for change, and it is session time. We are getting people educated on what to do to change their community. So we have on our agenda an icebreaker. So I guess we can just, I'll tell you, my hope for people who are system impacted within the community is for them to be fully sufficient and people able to find work and housing and, you know, be humanized whenever they come home. My concern is that we are a forgotten community. So that's our purpose for being here, and then I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves.
I want to find everybody warmed up and engaged. In your boxes, you have some sticky notes. So in these next few minutes, I want you guys to answer these two questions. I want you to write on there. If it takes more than one, that's fine, because we want to be able to post this on here so that we can reflect back on what you're saying. What is a hope that you have for people who are system impacted and returning to the community? Yeah, you just write your answer on that post-it, and I'll come collect it and stick it up here. We're going to give you a few minutes moment to answer that one. No rush. We're doing a little bit of impromptu networking. In your box that you got, there were some sticky notes, and I just want you to answer the question on there. The question is, what is a hope that you have for people who are system impacted and returning to the community? And then I'll gather those and stick them up here so that we're able to reflect back on what you want to say. Hi, welcome.
How are you? We're just doing a little networking right now. We're just getting started.
Yeah, so right now we're just doing impromptu networking. We're just getting people engaged. We want to know what your thoughts are, where your values sit. So Kirsten's going to give you a box and some infographics. Inside the box is a sticky note pad. If you can answer the question, what is a hope you have for people who are system impacted and returning to the community? Are you having trouble seeing that?
No.
Oh, okay. And as you get done, you can just kind of raise your hand. I'm happy to collect those. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, no, it's fine. I need to exercise. So, we'll take a few more minutes and answer another question that I will come to. What are your concerns for people who are system impacted? These could be a range of different things from concerns for the community, concerns for the individual, concerns about their lack of ability to access equality and equitable education, finances, job opportunities.
Icebreaker part.
It's okay. You're on for more things as we talk.
I'm gonna have to turn it away from you. Sorry, y'all.
I can't see them. I can't see the question. They're on the agenda.
Hello.
Welcome. That
I can't, I'm not an analyst.
Oh,
I got your question here.
Few more moments. Thank you. Hi, how are you?
hey.
Walk in, Maggie's gonna catch you guys up to what we're currently doing. I see some really good answers here. What are the hopes that we have for people who are seeking impacted and returning to the community to have every opportunity to have a good life, that they are welcome, that they adjust, that they succeed. You would hope that the government doesn't use them as a guinea pig to find to attack their base or the CIA. So all very valid concerns and all very things that we will address today, and hoping to pass legislation with your support on how to make these barriers non-existent or more feasible for people who are system impacted. Some of your concerns were healthcare outside of the system, that they wouldn't be able to get jobs or housing, that they do not have a safe supporting place to go, that they are less employable, because of their records. Again, all things that we're going to address that this bill will change. So with that, I'm gonna take it into introduction. I would like to introduce the SLC, which is all of us. I'll turn it over to, Benny, and then Maggie, and we'll just go on down the line.
Well, thank you guys for coming out today. My name is Benny Hernandez. I'm from Austin, Texas. In my community, I'm working with the Texas Civil Rights Project. We do a variety of issues, mostly litigation and some policy work. We focus on criminal justice, racial and border issues, and also voter rights issues. And as Cynthia said, I'm part of the SOC Steering Committee, and it's great that you guys came out today. I thank you very much.
And my name is Maggie, like I said earlier, I'm with the Statewide Leadership Council. We are system impacted people all across Texas. We are a project of the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, and I'm so happy that all of y'all came here today.
I'm Lauren Nutt, steering committee. I did 2 years in TDC on a 6-year sentence, and that's how I started to get involved with this. In my adult grown-up life, I'm part of an organization called Empower Women with Purpose that serves women with the law enforcement. And then in my part-time life, this is my passion, is helping the people who are coming out of incarceration have fair and equitable treatment.
And my name is Cynthia Simons. I work with the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition. I am a member of SLC, and I also lead the Texas Women's Justice Coalition, making sure that a woman's justice perspective is involved in all conversations. And I am also formerly incarcerated. Savannah?
My name is Savannah Eldridge. I'm a member of the SLC Steering Committee. I have an organization called East Fight for Justice. We help people in TDC through the appeal process. And I also founded an organization called the Coalition to Abolish Slavery in Texas.
That I'm also a member of. I forgot that. Kirsten.
Hi there. I'm the founder and director for the City Streets, and we work with women coming out of prison to help them reintegrate to society, offering transitional living and some other curriculum and stuff to help them develop coping skills and stay sober while they're walking this journey out. I'm also a steering committee member of the Statewide Leadership Council, and I advocate in my free time on a volunteer basis to help make changes in policy around the state of Texas that affects those that are currently incarcerated and previously incarcerated, so that we can deal with those collateral consequences that so many of us have been oppressed by.
Yes, thank you all for being here. Savannah?
I'm Lauren Marino. I'm part of the Statewide Leadership Council, and I'm just gonna help out. Yeah, that's it.
She's being modest. She does more than that. She was responsible for all of those free gift bags.
She also lives in Beaumont, so this is her. I'm from Austin.
I'm from Austin. Livingston. Savannah's from Houston. So she was the champion behind rallying all of you good people here and spreading the word here. So she's a very good asset and value to the SLC. So next we will have David up here, and I'll let Maggie do it for the introduction.
Okay, yes, this is exciting. We have David Collinsworth, who is the producer of the Prison Check. It is aired every Friday night within the prisons all across Texas. And he's been doing this work for so long, and it's amazing. And it helps so many people. So, hey, you can come up here.
So, Mommy, I'm gonna leave that.
You want to just,
Can I ask you a question? You want me to just shoot off the head?
yeah, you can just shoot off there.
All right, all right. It's good to see everybody. Y'all don't mind, I'm up here kind of by myself, I'm gonna take my mask off. It's easier for you to understand me, easier for me to talk, and I won't get out of breath bad. Like Maggie said, my name is David Collinsworth. My TDCJ number is 540-850. I've probably been incarcerated, I have been incarcerated over 15 years in TDCJ, but I did it in installment plans. I was very blessed to be able to go in and get used to doing time and make parole and come out, and then I screw up and I go back. It's one of my biggest fears that I put on the board is that the guys will get out and relapse and go back. That's what happened to me. It took me 3 trips down to be able to get it right. And this last time, not to get real religious, but I really prayed to God. I cried out and I said, what am I doing wrong? How come every time I go down, I can be successful and I can do my time, I can get a job, I can get education, I can volunteer in the chapel, and then I make parole and I get out. But every time I get out, I screw up and go back. And I really felt like the Lord was telling me that I needed to do all the things outside that I was doing inside. So on the outside, I can do continuing education just as much as I can. I volunteer just as much as I can. I go to church every chance I get. And I just continue to do all the things the habits that I established while I was incarcerated on the outside. My biggest legacy, I guess, is I had a mentor for many, many years. His name was Ray Hill. And any guy who's ever been down knows Ray Hill. Ray Hill began KPFT in Houston at 90.1 FM. He was one of the founding fathers there. He ended up being incarcerated. He said he got time off for bad behavior after he started a radio show. He went to prison for burglary, several different burglaries. He had like 10 different charges. So whenever he got out, he started a show called The Prison Show. And what The Prison Show is famous for is you guys call in and shout out to your loved ones that's incarcerated. So it's a way to get that word over the wire. Sometimes the letters don't make it. We all know that the news is all blocked out a lot of times. You can't actually get real news, but yet we can get your voices across that wire and across that wall. And we give you 2 minutes to make a shout out. And the show's been listener sponsored for 40 years. So this is our 40th year. We're having difficulties this year because of COVID-19, different things, but we're still getting donations. We're still on the air. And we haven't, as of yet, been in danger of losing the show, but it's come really close. But I've been involved with the prison show since about 2004. I had a girlfriend that got involved with Ray, and I had been listening to him since about 1990. And I thought, why would she be going down there? What could she possibly get out of the station? And then whenever I got out of prison, I couldn't understand why she didn't stop volunteering. She kept on going. And I would take her down on Friday nights and I'd sit out in the car and I'd listen to the show. And whenever the show was over, she'd come out and she'd be all bubbly. And over a period of time, I got to where I would go in and I would get involved. And I started out taking Ray a Diet Dr. Pepper, of all things. And he would clown me if I didn't do it exactly on time. I'd have to get it to him right as the show started, not before, not after. If I got it to him too early, he'd drink it and he'd be parched and he'd be clowning me. And ain't nothing worse than to get clowned over the air for all your homeboys to hear you back down in TCJC. And so I got to where I would bring that Diet Dr. Pepper exactly on time. I'd open it before I got in the studio. I had it down pat. And then after all these years later, I look back and what he was showing me was timing. Radio was about timing. And if I didn't do it exactly right, then the show wouldn't be right. Everything would be off. That Diet Dr. Pepper started everything. And now I look back at it as the producer after all these years, and I still remember the Diet Dr. Pepper. I remember the lesson that I learned, and I try and do the show exactly like Ray would want. Me and the community, what I've done since I've been out is I'm a productive member of society today. I actually have a career. I volunteer for the radio show. That's all voluntary. But I'm a maintenance man. And I got a job with Planet Fitness. In Houston, Texas, we have 27 different gyms. I started out as a maintenance man over 6. I was the only maintenance man they had, so we had 12. I learned how to do all the IT stuff, all the plumbing, all the electrical, work on all the equipment. I'm certified on everything in the building, including the tanning beds and the hydro massage beds. After we had 12 of them, it was just way too much for me. I was working from about 4 a.m. to about 10 o'clock at night. I learned how to do all the order and I had to do everything myself. And so I begged and pleaded for them to hire other people. Now I've got 5 guys and a girl that work for me. I'm facility manager over all 27 gyms for the maintenance department. And I never thought I'd have a career. I do. And the skills I learned in TCJC is what I use on the outside. That's how I got my job. That's how I kept my job. Because I'm trying to stay with that. My prayer was that I do everything outside that I was doing inside. So I work maintenance inside, so here I am. In addition to the radio show and working at Planet Fitness, I just try and volunteer as much as I can. I try and do a lot of public speaking, try and share my experience, strength, and hope. And I do have a program, I've got 14 years sober. So I think that sobriety is probably the key of me staying free as well. Some of the things about being formerly incarcerated and advocacy that I get pumped and excited about is seeing change. It's really hard for TDCJ to change. TDCJ is stuck in a rut, a major big rut that they've been in for years and years and years, as long as they've ever been, because it's always been about them. If you look at the history of TDCJ, it was slavery. It was about being the plantations, and they were in control, and it was all about them making a profit. And they may not be making a profit today, but they're losing control, and they keep grasping, they keep doing stupid stuff because they want to be in control and they think they know everything. And it's time to change, it's time to grow. And so it gets me excited whenever we have even minor victories over TDCJ. Whenever we get programs that the guys and gals can use after they've been approved for parole, and they're actually being able to do some programs. It would be, I guess it'd be called correspondence. It's actually paperwork that they're doing rather than getting transferred to a program. I get excited whenever they start letting people out of ADSEG and they have classes that the guys and gals can use to get out and grow from whenever they get out of ADSEG. I know Ray Hill started a lot of different programs, and I was a peer educator whenever I was in there, so I played a part in that as well.
Can I ask you a specific question?
Sure, go ahead.
Have you ever testified about bills at the Capitol before?
Yes, I'm fixing to get to that. That's the next thing right here. Not only have I testified at the Capitol, but I went all the way to Washington. We were marching on the Capitol to ban the box.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, we got an interview with Senator Booker, and they actually banned the box on federal applications. So if you were going to be a contractor on the federal level, the box wasn't on there anymore. And if you guys don't know what the box is, it says, check here if you've ever been convicted of a felony. And on from an employer's viewpoint, as soon as that box was checked, it goes in that pile over there. That means that this pile over here that has no check marks on the box is the one that I'm going to look at. Those guys automatically are crossed out. I don't want anything to do with those. So we did that in Washington. I also did it I've been to Austin and Houston, both city council for banning the box, which is very important. I've been to the Capitol with Tifa. I used to be Tifa regional director, and we would go, and I talked with Sylvester Turner whenever he was still there. I talked with Representative White. I've actually talked with a senator from Virginia, believe it or not. Virginia, his name was Bryce Reeves, and they wanted to mimic a lot of things that we were doing in Texas. So he called me at the radio show, and we were able to sit down and talk. And I actually went to Virginia and seen what all he had. Because there's a lot of different laws in Virginia that we don't have in Texas, which I thought maybe we should try and mimic some of their stuff. But yeah, he wanted to mimic some of our stuff. So I thought it was pretty cool. Alma, yeah.
Do you think, not having that box on there, do you think that the employer feels like the state has first dibs on slaving him out before the employer does?
No, I think by getting rid of the box, what it does is it gives the guy, whoever finds a fair chance to be able to tell what kind of experience they have, and be able to have an interview, and be able to have their say before they're just automatically denied that job.
You know what I'm saying? If when you go to prison,
Yeah.
then the state feels like you're their slave now, and they're gonna use your number and everything to slave you out. Now, the employer, that might cut in on their profit when they're trying to slave you out. You know what I'm saying?
No, not exactly, because banning the box is on a job application. So that if I don't check that box, that guy's not even gonna know that I've ever been to prison until he gets to a certain process and be able to run the background check. At that point in time, maybe he's already liked me, maybe he's already seen that I have the skills, maybe he's already seen that my crime was committed in 1990 and it's 2021.
Right.
I'm a whole different person. I've got 14 years sobriety now. I've got a lot of experience in maintenance, so he's better to give me a chance now than he would have if I'd have just checked the box off.
That was just a thought I had.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought, but I just feel like by banning that box, it gets our foot.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not a good idea, I'm just saying, do you think that's why they do that? I mean, that they want. So,
And I think they want to know because it saves them from having to interview any further. It saves them a lot of time of weeding out anybody who's ever been convicted of a felony. Because I went to the blood bank whenever I first got out of prison in 2007, and I went through 3 different interviews and thought I was going to get an air conditioning job in the maintenance department. And as soon as they got to that spot where they ran the background check on them, they said, like I didn't know, but they said, do you know you have 4 felonies? Yeah, I know. So what does that have to do with the maintenance job? I'll be working on your refrigeration unit. And they had another candidate that didn't have any felonies. And they said he was better qualified, even though I had 20 years experience. He only had 10 years experience. He was better qualified because he didn't have any felonies. So, Alma Allen started whenever we went to the Capitol with her, it was a oversight committee. And that bill's been in session, this is the 3rd time? So we're still trying to get that on test. And it's very exciting to go and actually get into the Capitol and try and talk to people. But it's also a lot of work because if you've never done any kind of speaking, you gotta get your back turned. You have to be able to say it within a minute. They call it an elevator speech. I mean, the way they pictured it is if you get into the elevator with Representative White and you have to go from the 1st floor to the 3rd floor, can you introduce yourself, get his attention, and get some material to him within that amount of time to be able to pique his interest. So yes, I have testified, yes, I have done that.
David, can you explain what oversight means for people who just wouldn't understand?
The oversight committee would actually have someone who's outside of TDCJ, looking at TDCJ and actually seeing their decisions that they're making, and kind of like being a babysitter, an overseer. They actually need an open book. Right now, it's a big brother system, it's a brother-in-law system, it's a, I'm gonna make decisions and damn everybody if they don't like it. And right now, we need other people that can look in, other people who are unbiased. I'm not saying that it would be necessarily us, but it should be, if we're convicted of a trial by our peers, then we should have all of our peers actually looking into TCJ, and not ex-wardens and ex-guards, and the guard union. That's who's looking at them now. And they want to say, oh, but we've been inspected, and then if you look at who inspected them, it was their own people. So we need people outside of TCJ. What advice do I have for anyone who wants to get in on the action? Just get started. I mean, that's the biggest thing. A lot of people say, I want to do this, and boy, if I had an opportunity, I could do this. You can start somewhere. Lauren made the packages. She's sitting over here running the computer. She's been on my show. She actually started a rally. The object is to get started. I started by bringing Ray Hill a diet Dr. Pepper. Who would ever thought that Dr. Pepper was so important? Today, as the producer for the prison show, we reach over 3,500 people a week. And that's a lot of people. And for me to be worried about a listener-sponsored radio and to actually reach our goals whenever we do fund drive, to be able to keep it listener-sponsored, not actually bringing commercials. I don't know why I should be worried with 3,500 people a week. It seems like I should be able to bring in $3,000 or $4,000 every week for that station. I think it's just a matter of getting started. Somebody's got to start. We got to put one foot in front of the other. And if we're just sitting at home waiting on everybody else to do it, it's never going to get done. So it doesn't matter where you start, as long as you get started.
Absolutely.
Anybody else got any more questions? Did I cover everything pretty good? How much time do I have? Did I go way over?
I know KPFT is struggling with radio programming and, they might shut down, so the prison shall have a contingency plan if KPFT does shut down.
We are in the middle of a contingency plan. We do Facebook right now. We have a YouTube channel. But I have actually been in contact with probably every radio station in the state of, independent radio station in the state of Texas. And what I'm trying to do is I'm going to send out a lot of our shows and try and get other people to pick us up. I think what's holding us back now is our footprint, even at KPFT, is 100 miles around Houston, 100 miles around Huntsville. We used to have 100 miles around Livingston and 100 miles around Galveston, but we've lost Livingston and Galveston both. And there's another station that walks all over us up at Huntsville if we don't keep our transmitter going, and we have to make weekly trips up there to make sure everything's going at Huntsville. I think what we need is other stations that'll pick us up and carry us, even if I send out a pre-recorded so that they can play our 2-hour show. And those stations that are closer to the prisons we're not reaching, like in Gatesville, I want to teach someone there that would actually pick up our 2nd hour, and they can make their own shout outs. So that way the females would have their own shout out on the 2nd hour. They could have our 1st hour, and they could be a part of the prison show, but they could be just as much part of the prison show as we are, but yet they would have their own 2nd hour. And then maybe other states could pick us up after that. But I think that right now we're concentrating on Texas, but it would be great. I would think that if we were a nationwide program and everybody picked up their 2nd hour and made their own shout outs.
We have a question from Cynthia Garza. She asked, what's the YouTube handle, and do you go live or is it pre-recorded? You do
No,
both, right?
the YouTube right now is just, they're all pre-recordings. I haven't been able to go live yet, but it is 90.1 FM, The Prison Show. So if you just go to YouTube and just put in The Prison Show, it'll come up.
Yeah.
But I see Jennifer's on there. So many of you guys have been there, and we appreciate you guys coming in. I think what my main job is within the advocacy community is giving you guys a platform. I think I have a way to get our voices heard and over the wire and inside the walls, and that's what I want to concentrate on. I think that sometimes as advocates, maybe we get too strung out.
Oh, yeah.
And we need to find our lane and stay in it. I used to be with TIFA. I used to be the local chapter chair in Houston. Then I became a regional chapter, and I went out and I started other chapters, all from Tyler all over to El Paso. And finally one day it dawned on me, I need to stay home. I need to stay home because I got to concentrate on the prison show because nobody else is. So you guys can if you want to be on the show and you've got an office or whatever, then friend me on Facebook like everybody does, and then we'll work it out. So, that question?
Yes, I was wondering, have you, or even thought or have done any interest in the leadership and management as far as the prisons, treatment centers, and all those things? Because, recidivism rate is important at this time.
Right.
And to target management and leadership could possibly be important to incorporate some type of training that includes all of this information that you're giving that they don't know. And it could actually open their minds for what they're teaching the facilitators, the guards, the people that are in contact with those like us.
That would be an awful big thing. I have had most of those people, Brian Collier and everybody on the radio show. I've never thought about starting a class for them. I've been in other facilities where I was a chaplain of Spirit Key, and we taught the guys. I've always concentrated on the returning citizens. As far as the staff members go, we go down to every year TDCJ has a program where we're all able to meet them, and I go down, I pass out my cards, and I get to know everybody, and I invite people on the shows. And I think a lot of Brian Collier and most of the people that are down at TDCJ actually listen to the show. And Hank makes them really mad, and especially Mendoza. Hank really makes Mendoza mad. And it's kind of funny because you get results. But you may have a good point. I'm not sure that I'm the one to start that program, because like I said, I think I need to concentrate on the radio show.
I would like to get your phone number.
I've got plenty of cards. You guys come over and see me. I brought some pamphlets about the show.
I'm currently writing a dissertation on that topic.
Okay. It sounds great to me. Anybody else?
Thank you, David.
All right.
So much. That's amazing. I'm very happy about the prison show. It helped so many people. And when I started hearing people doing shout outs for people on the inside, I was like, how cool would that have been if I was able to? It's not that easy on the women's unit, but that's neither here nor there. So the next thing that we're gonna talk about is I'm gonna let y'all know what the SLC is working on right now. SLC is the Statewide Leadership Council. like I said earlier, we are a project of the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, and we are working on some items for the legislature. So, there's a national initiative called Clean Slate Initiative. And they have been working all across the nation, getting, expungements and non-disclosures for former incarcerated, so we can have, our rights restored. Now, Texas is way behind, and Texas has a lot of loops that a lot of other states don't have. So we have a heavy lift in front of us. So Texas has, there's a non-disclosure, which you can get an order of non-disclosure from a judge, and then it's a long process. So we have a bill that we're working on that would automate that process. If you are eligible for it, you should just automatically get it. Because normally, if you're eligible for it, you weren't even convicted. So they should not make you pay for everything. So, expunction is a little harder. It's just like a magical thing that nobody's ever even had. So, I don't even know anyone who's ever been eligible for expunction. So our goal is to just try to broaden the non-disclosure for more charges, more people would be eligible, and then the automated process would affect more people. So along this line, while we were deciding to work with the Clean Slate Initiative, a lot of people in the statewide leadership council would not qualify. We would no sooner grow wings than be eligible to get an order of non-disclosure. So we have a bill that we're working on called New Wings. And it would give people who have been convicted of felonies, serve their time, and are out doing whatever. So this bill, New Wings, would allow people a pathway to non-disclosure. And it would be, of course, there's certain tier systems, but in Michigan and Washington, you get your rights, your civil rights restored when you're done with the system after a certain amount of years. Texas, we're gonna have to really push just to get a pathway to non-disclosure for people who have convicted and done their time. And so we understand it's gonna be a heavy lift, and so we are asking for everyone who has been affected by it to reach out to your local representatives. And because it's beneficial for businesses to be able to hire more people, beneficial for the economy because more people will be working, and it's just beneficial for recidivism rate. If you have a job that you can provide, you're probably less likely to lose that. So, and I've been convicted of more than one felony. I've done time twice. So this bill would benefit me, not yet, but in a few years. And I've been out since 2017. I have not committed any more crimes. I have not done any more drugs, and I've been working in this field. And I never, ever thought that I would be sitting right here talking to anybody. I got out and I met a man named Anthony Graves, who was wrongfully convicted and on death row. And he showed me what it was like to testify at the Capitol. And he had just gotten out of prison not too long ago, and he was sitting in front of these state reps telling his story about what happened inside. And it just blew my mind away, because nobody knows what we went through there. They know what they think happens in there, So smart justice Speakers Bureau and we learned how to testify, and I was terrified, completely terrified, because all of these people are wearing suits and ties. And so eventually along the way, what I've learned is that they're people and we elect them, so we have a say in what they do. And they don't know what's going on in there. So we who've been there need to let them know. And what I've found is that whenever I do reach out to senators and representatives, they know the statistics, they know the numbers, they know what the high-ups tell them all day long. But when you tell them about how you're actually treated and how you actually ate in there, and how you actually, were talked to like a dog or whatever, that's the stuff that they need to know, and then you want me to come back out and be a productive member of society. So we're working to get our stories told into this state legislature so they know people like us exist and we are humans and we can do the right thing. Just give us a chance, So that's how I became an advocate in this fight. And it's my passion, and I'm grateful for everybody who's here because we empower each other. Nobody knows what it's like but somebody who's been there. And it's been really amazing, but I just want everybody to do it because it's empowering to be able to get something changed, and so like David already alluded on.
You know that Anthony Gray used to be a host on the Clean Slate?
Yes, with Kathy Griffin. Yes, Kathy
I was
Griffin.
actually his intern.
Really? So Kathy Griffin is the one who introduced me to Anthony. She said they were radio partners. Yeah, small world. So, yeah, and like David had said earlier, you have 3 minutes to get up and say what you want to say before they ding your bell and say, that's time,
You folks had to do it 1 minute first. And then
Yeah.
You gotta expand.
Can you give me like the criteria for qualifying?
To speak.
No, qualify for the week.
Oh, so New Wings is, there's a tier system for certain felonies. You've already been convicted, you've been free, and it depends on, the level of the felony for how many years it would be. And it could be like 7, 10, and 12 for A, B, and C. They're all felonies, you've been convicted, and you've already done your time. So after this many years, you're eligible to apply for a non-disclosure. Now, you wouldn't get an automatic license and all that, but you would have that option. Right now, there's no way. There's no way at all. So we're trying to edge our way in and get a pathway, because I've done my time, but that is still on my record. It's never gonna go away in the state of Texas until we do something about it. So, yeah, you have to, it is nerve-wracking when you get up in front of the legislators, but after you realize these are all just people, and you probably know more about the inside of the prison cell than they do. You know more about what goes on in there than they do, and they need to know what you know. So, I just want y'all to know that as a person who's formerly incarcerated, my past empowers me today. It helps me to move forward every day. And I used to think that my past was going to destroy me and I would never be anything ever again. I had a felony, I'd never find a job, I'd never find a house. And today I use it for other people. And so I'm here in Beaumont hoping that y'all will do the same thing out here. And whenever I leave, you can start your own community out here of formerly incarcerated people who are fighting for change. So,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
Are there some felonies that can never get undisclosed?
I mean, I'm sure once we get to that stage,
When you get to that,
yeah, we're gonna get some pushback about something. So, I mean, there's always the negotiating.
are you familiar with the new law in Texas that says that family violence can never be expunged or non-disclosed?
No, I'm not familiar with
It's
that.
fairly new. I have a daughter that's in that predicament. They were in the process of getting it expunged because she was 17 at the time of the offense. And it's
fairly new because they stopped it right in the middle.
There's a bill, I think, that's supposed to address that. That's it was filed, yeah, to exclude family violence charges. I'll see if I can find the number.
Okay.
Are you aware of a law that allows the government to aim military grade weapons at your residence if you have a domestic violence in your, or some kind of assaultive nature in your character?
Well, they did that to me and I wasn't there.
In 1994, that's the law when you shoot weapons in your house. If you got some kind of aggressive personality or something like that. You're aware of that?
Mm-mm.
Right, and then
Well, they do it whether it's in there or not. I mean, honestly, they pull guns and throw you on the ground for
I'm talking about the weapons you can't see.
no reason.
Not electronic weapons in that area.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I might need to look into
I
that.
know they, like, they're not gonna.
Okay, I'll look up that.
Yeah, it's not, the law that passed in 1994, some kind of bill, Rumsfeld in the past, where if you got some kind of violent character or whatever, or they like you, queer or whatever, that they can aim these weapons at you and use these electromagnetic frequencies and attack your brain.
What?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. So this is something that you could probably reach out to your local representative, and maybe they don't even know that it's still there, you know? There's a law that, about fishing. Like, you can't lie on a fishing contest. So a lot of your reps don't know these laws are still on the books. So you can call them, let them know.
That's what the fishing story is.
I know. It's an actual law, though. You can actually, if somebody knew that it was law, they would, could arrest you. But anyways, it's something that we can only change it once we start reaching out. So let people know, because we don't, not every representative knows every law that's on the books. Just saying. So education is key, and I just want to give it over to Cynthia.
Thank you, Maggie. That was very thorough. We are going to reflect on what Maggie said, and we would like you, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, 7 if you participate. We would like you to gather amongst yourselves, not really gather, speak amongst yourselves about any questions, comments, concerns that you have about the bill, the initiative that Maggie just explained. If there's something you would like to bring to the table, if there's something that you would like to emphasize, if there's something that you don't understand.
Okay, everybody,
So
we're having a discussion about the new wings bill. So based on the discussion today, I'd like to know, if this group feels like it's something that you guys can support. If you have any questions about details of the bill, how this may affect a certain population, you can ask now or post it in the chat. But we're trying to make it interactive and just really reflecting on how this bill would help people have a successful reintegration in society and more positive outcomes. So anybody want to provide any feedback? Oh, there's Lori. Lori, I'm 100% behind New Wings, and I'm willing to work on Clean Slate, even though it won't apply to my charge, I'm sure. Right. Thank you for that, Lori. I think a lot of times, when we do this work, we find that, a lot of issues don't necessarily apply to us, but we know, we want to uplift the whole population. So we try to focus on initiatives that affect the population as a whole, and that will improve overall outcomes and situations. Let me see. Anybody else? Exactly. Thank you for sharing, Rhonda. This bill is important to me.
You want to speak that?
Right. Absolutely, Cynthia. So this Clean Slate initiative is actually a national initiative, and that's always great when other states, other larger organizations are on board. It's great for like contributions to like literature and media and getting the word out. Um, so it's always great when we like there's strength in numbers, right? So one thing that we can do on a local level is, if we support a bill, like I mentioned earlier in another discussion that we were having, we can always call our representatives and tell our representatives that we support this legislation. I don't think that we have a bill number yet for Clean Slate or New Wings, do we? No, I don't think we have a bill number yet, but it always helps when you can give your legislators or representatives a call and tell them you support the legislation. They want to know what their constituents are thinking, are doing, what they're leaning toward, because as was mentioned here, a lot of times it's us who are educating them about what's going on in our communities. Let's see, what did David say?
The different things that are being denied.
Minor official. Anyone for family rights, anyone who's been convicted or pled guilty to a domestic violence charge and is going through a divorce or custody battle should be aware the criminal court is obligated to notify the family court, and this could impact your ability to gain custody or impact. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see. Lori says, when is the auction?
That's Good Johnson.
What's the auction? Oh, you playing games, David. Okay, let's see what Lauren says. I do think we need to do some education within our population of formerly incarcerated people so that we understand that all people are different regardless of their charge, and all people can and do change. People of my charge, if they don't reoffend within 7 years, they're no more likely to offend than any regular person who's never been convicted of anything. I agree, Lori, and I think, that goes along with the conversation. We started talking about like violent versus non-violent, and even charges related to sex offenses. Like, we know that when we're advocating for these bills, we should not feel like we have control to separate or pit one charge against the other, right? If we are really striving toward a pathway to freedom, that means a pathway to freedom for all and justice for all. So I totally, absolutely support that. Anybody else want to chime in while we're waiting? Lauren, do you have anything to add over there across the table?
We're literally, Savannah's right there. The Clean Slate New Wings wouldn't necessarily help me per se, but it would help my loved one who is waiting to come home. When he gets out, it'll still affect me as well. Being as my husband and the father to our children, it has a big effect on my life, where I'm going to live, what kind of job he's going to have, what kind of neighborhood our children are going to live in. It just has a big impact. It really does. It's a ripple effect. It's not just the person with the record. It's the person. It's their whole family.
Absolutely, Lauren. I see your comment, Rhonda, and I wanted to add that Cynthia is actually working on a family reunification bill, and we already have a sponsor. So please keep in touch with us about that. We're trying to make it more feasible for people to fight for custody without having to, because not everybody has $5,000 laying around, even for the application process or to pay for an attorney. So this Family Reunification Act will be a more, I guess, how you say, a more common sense way for people to apply to get custody back of their children or grandchildren. So talk to Cynthia about that. What's your email?
TexasCJC.org. Has it been drafted yet?
It's drafted, but we haven't got it back from Judge Council.
Okay, so the bill is drafted, waiting for it to come back from Ledge Council so it can be filed and get a number. So hopefully that'll happen soon. One of the missions of TDCJ is about reintegrating FIPS into society. Are they helping promote change that will help? Good question, Wolf. Are they helping promote change that will help? Well, I haven't seen them helping, honestly. I'm just being totally honest, right? You know, the fact that we have to file a bill in order for them to respond to people who are getting ready to return to society says a lot. Like, and we're not even asking for them to create more resources. We're just asking them to use the resources that they have more efficiently. So if you ask me, no, they're not helping promote change that will help. I'm sorry to hear that, Rhonda. Okay, we're starting back again. Thank you so much, everybody, for contributing. We're gonna let Cynthia start back up.
Thoughtful, wonderful discussions, and we are eager to hear what people said, what questions. Or if you guys still need 1 or 2 minutes to work on that, we'll address the one that we have on the board. Will convictions in other states be eligible for non-disclosure?
So this gentleman has a question. His conviction is in another state, Arizona. Whether or not that conviction would be, if Florida and Texas would have the opportunity to see that, or would his slate be clean, you know, through this initiative? So, and that's a very good question, right? You know, if you have a conviction in another state, whether or not the Texas legislature has the authority to, I know that we couldn't actually expunge, at least, I'm not an attorney, so I won't.
No.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm not saying no, it wouldn't be eligible, but what I'm saying is the state, it depends on what background check level of it that the company ran. So if it was a state, then they wouldn't see it. But if it was a federal job where they ran a nationwide background, then it would still be on there because the charge originated in another state. The Texas legislature would not have any jurisdiction over that. That would be in the state in which the charge was incurred. That's still a really good question, though. I mean, people need to know.
And it's something that we should bring up with Ledge Council when we review.
That's actually what I told him when when he and I were talking on the side, that I thought that was a great question.
Yeah, because if you have a question, somebody else can bring up.
Absolutely.
So, that's great, thank you.
And the next question is, what if the person is undocumented?
Great question. But that is something that we are having to work with, Mount, because it does affect, because it's criminalization, you know? Being, immigration has been criminalized, so we have to work together with the, immigration advocates on all of these bills, so, I mean, it's something that we would want in the bill, so hopefully it'll make it the,
Absolutely, SLC definitely doesn't discriminate, and we advocate to end mass incarceration and equality and equity for everybody. So we would definitely not exclude a certain population. Do you have another question, Maggie?
yes, how will you create situations for all of TDCJ to have advocates for this knowledge?
How would we create a situation for TDCJ to create advocates for this, with this model?
We do have advocates that go into TDCJ, that, you know, the pandemic right now.
Re-entry would definitely, I mean, we can't force TCJC to put this into their programming, but we have Lori Mellinger, who works with EWAC, who is a program that is on a volunteer basis inside of TCJ. So we're very well connected with organizations, volunteer groups, and networks that are able to get inside of TCJ and advocate to these women that, hey, this is your possibility now. Make sure that you explore this when this happens, or if you behave and not get in any trouble and become a productive member of the community, these are your options as far as your background. These are your options as far as your kids. These are your options as far as housing possibilities.
And what about treatment facilities?
Treatment facilities, we work with a large range of people. Doug Smith is on the board of the Sobering Center in Austin. Maggie here, wonderful Maggie, mentors there and does some peer support there. So we have people in all realms of advocacy, organization, re-entry, rehabilitation. And if there was a certain population that people felt like wasn't being touched, they weren't being educated, we're always open for people to reach out to us and say, hey, you know, this whole town of re-entry or this whole town of people in recovery, no one knows anything about this. What can we do? And we're more than happy to pull together education pieces, one-pagers, come out and educate the community because we want people to know that these options are here. We want them to know it's feasible and we want them to know that there is a path to successful re-entry.
And that is one of the reasons that we're here, is because we don't know what's going on in Beaumont. We need people like you to bring your community into the conversation. And after this, we're going to have a virtual same concept with DAs, prosecutors, elected officials in Beaumont. Have them join us virtually so we can discuss maybe not the same things, but help them, whatever they questions they have, how it would affect them and what would be their pushback. So, and we hope to do this in cities all across Texas, but Beaumont is our first, and so this is.
Will that be open for anyone to attend?
Yes, if you just find, here, I'm gonna give you my card, and then on Facebook, I'll send out a link that when it goes through. So I'll leave my card with everybody.
And Kirsten, I think you wanted to expand on that.
No, what I wanted, during our conversation a moment ago, we had talked about getting those of us who have been previously incarcerated into the system, working within the system.
Oh, yeah.
I know for those of us who have pursued academia and have higher degrees, should be able to work for Wyndham. We should have opportunities to go in and work for TCJC in the chaplaincy department or in the clerk's department or in other departments. If they truly believe in the rehabilitation of the ex-offender, then after a period of time, we should have a pathway to get hired to go in so that we can encourage those who are in there and treat them like the human beings that they are. So I think after our conversation, there needs to be a push towards TCJC for hiring more of us who are worthy of being hired.
Currently, I'm a chapel volunteer. I go in for AA and I go in for the chapel except for COVID. But I mean, for years, that's been our avenue to get in because we can go in and we can teach classes. I've taught re-entry, I've taught parole packages, I've taught chapel classes. That's a good way to get your foot in the door. And then once the people know you on individual units, the warden will allow you to do other things.
But see, if we were actually hired by TCJC, we could do the training like you were talking about for the staff.
What we had an ex-offender who was an actual chaplain.
Aha.
And then he passed away. I mean, he did open the door to be able to do that in there.
Okay.
He passed away
Yeah.
3 years ago.
And that's something that we need to bring awareness to.
Mhm.
Call your representative, call your local DA and be like, or judges. That, you know, do you understand that when you sentence me for 20 years and tell me I'm eligible for parole at 5, that I may not get out for 20 years? You know, judges don't know that. They think, I'm gonna give him 20, he'll get out in 5. But you don't. So,
I'd like to give you an example. When the jump out crew came to my house and kicked my door in, the officer, the supervisor over the jump out crew, put his foot on my back, and excuse my language, but his word was arrest this bitch, because I didn't give him the information that he wanted. That was in 2003. Today, he and I texted. And he told me, he said, you are a statistic that don't happen.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Possible that we can reach them.
Yes,
Yeah.
we need to let them know, we need this, we're here, and we are.
And there's a lot of us.
And we're growing,
Yes.
Yeah,
because you're locking up
And the
more of us.
power behind the stories is phenomenal.
yes. I mean, tell somebody I had to jump out was on my back. And now.
And now we will.
Yeah, you need to.
Oh, I have a policy question, but it was over a different bill. And it was over time. I haven't looked at it enough.
Feel free to ask.
So HJR 51, assuming it gets passed and then the ballot, that's the abolish slavery, that's this one, resolution. Assuming it gets passed and it gets, voted in this November, what does the actual implementation look like? And the other thing was, this is for Texas jurisdiction, so like, my question is, that I got from undocumented friends were like, so what about people that are under federal detention or federal inmates? Like, will they, like, what will happen to that labor force gap? Like, are they gonna bring in that labor now and like, have that happen, or like, that's a possibility that could happen too, like the Republicans and Democrats could say, well, win-win, like, we're closing these federal prisons and jails.
More immigration.
Yeah.
Going.
Yeah. That's my question.
I think Savannah would be best.
Well, I'm actually one of the people who wrote that legislation and got Rep. Allen to file it and sponsor it. So, the answer
The bill is first.
okay, well, okay. So this wasn't part of the agenda, but House Joint Resolution is a constitutional amendment that would end slavery even as punishment for a crime. So right now, the state of Texas is one of, I think, 4 states where people who are incarcerated in our state prisons do not get any kind of compensation for the labor that they do. So, I mean, they do anything from, fixing buses, they make stoves, they make the very furniture that are in the courtrooms in the state. So they do, and they actually retread tires. There's no limit to the work that they do. However, there's no compensation. So this resolution, this amendment is a part of a national effort, actually. So I'm actually co-director of state operations for an organization called Abolish Slavery National Network. And their premise was to attack it on a state level and then eventually find resolve on a national level. However, the movement's been going so fast, that we've already got the resolution filed on a national level as well. So House Joint Resolution 51 will amend our state constitution, adding language that says that no person in the state of Texas can be held in slavery or involuntary servitude, even as punishment for a crime. So as far as implementation and what that looks like, we can talk about wages, but the greater concern is that it's a violation of a person's human rights, right? And because we know, and a lot of people on our SLC can attest to the fact that, not only are the conditions horrid, but, you don't have the option not to work, right? When they tell you to go to work, you're going to work, or you're gonna get a disciplinary infraction. So this is the greater issue, is how TCJ and the state prisons are using this to force and to physically abuse and mentally abuse people into conditions that are violation of their human rights. So before we can even talk about how much pay is going to look like, because there are some federal prisons get 25 cents an hour. I think in some of the immigration detention facilities, they get $1 an hour. When you're in the field slaving, chopping cotton or whatever, because people still do work the fields, they still do, agricultural work, right? Is $1 an hour enough? No, it's not. So, before my stance on it is, before we can start talking about pay, we need to think about how we are violating people's human rights, right? And it's not up to us to figure out how our economy is going to survive without using people. without using people's physical labor. There's no oversight for the labor. My brother works in the kitchen in the prison. He worked 14 to 16 hours a day during the pandemic with no day off except Sunday. They didn't ask him if he was tired. They didn't ask him if he felt like he could get up to go to work. He went to work because if he didn't go to work, he knew what would happen. So hopefully, once this bill gets through the House, gets through the Senate with a majority vote, so we need 100 votes in the House, and we need, let's see, 27, I think. It's 2/3 of each, so I think it's 127 or 21, sorry. Once it gets through, then it'll be put on the ballot to vote by the Texas citizens. So the key right now is education, so people can understand that, yes, it is a constitutional amendment, and, it is slavery, right? It is slavery. It may not be slavery the way everybody thinks that it looked like as far as, with Black history, African American history, but when you think about the racial disparities, it's still slavery. The majority of the people in prison are minorities. It's just a fact, right? But even taking race out, no person should be held in slavery or involuntary servitude, regardless of race.
Black, white woman out of the incarcerated, they call her out to the kitchen every day.
Right.
She couldn't even walk.
I don't wanna sound like the needle, but the billions of dollars that taxpayers to pay all of these individuals, have that been a factor in if we could even pay them, and how?
Yeah, so last session, actually, there was a bill that was proposed. So first of all, TCJ does make money, right? They make money off of slavery. So yes, taxpayers do assume some of the costs for incarcerating people, but in 2017, I believe it was, TCI made over $80 million on prison labor. So let's think about that first. So if everyone in prison at the time would have been paid $1 an hour, they still would have netted over $30 million, right? But again, it's not up to us to figure it out, right? And we tend to not think about this until we are affected by it, and we need to stop being reactive, right, with everything, right? Because by the time it comes up, not like you pose your question, what will happen? How will that affect us? And is it going to be a cost to taxpayers? Well, we're talking about hundreds of years of a practice, right? Nobody can answer that question with certainty. But what we can say is that people are being abused and forced to work. People are dying because of the conditions that they're working in, and it is immoral. That's what we can say for certain.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Savannah, for speaking on that. I think we're gonna go ahead and end the Zoom now, guys. Please contact Maggie, myself, anybody in the Statewide Leadership Council for questions, comments, or concerns.
And we will have a virtual event coming up, so please, make sure you stay in contact so you can join us there. Thank you for your coming.
Okay, and for you, ladies and gentlemen here, we're going to do a conversation cafe.